What do you do in the instance where you plan a trip with your best buddies for 6 months and the day of the trip, you get the shits? Well, you keep going.
Somewhere between 3 and 5 hours, we finally landed in the Christmas Islands.
Wait, it didn't start off quite like that. By the time we got off the plane, grabbed our gear, made it through security, and had the car pick us up for the fishing lodge, it was well into the afternoon at that point, so there was no fishing or anything of that sort that day, but it would start promptly the next morning. And start early we did. Sometime well before sunrise, we prepped, we had breakfast, and made it to the boat. It was originally going to be 4 days on the boat and 3 days fishing from land, but those plans changed and we ended up having more boat days once we had driven around the island, but more on that later. We had met with a guide the previous night to discuss how we wanted to fish. Some of us wanted to do bait fishing, and some of us wanted to do lures, so it ended up being a mix of the two throughout the day. I also want to mention that most everybody else on our flight were fly fishermen, and we were the only ones that had actually packed and were armed with spinning reels and rods, so it was a little bit different, but we ended up working it out with our guide. As far as what gear we were using, I know Kai was using a Shimano rod. I think this was for jigging, but I don't remember the exact model number of it. But it was also outfitted with Shimano Saragossa spinning reel. I have to say the Saragossas held out really well. 60-pound braid and 100-pound leader, no problem. And some of the fish that was pulled in was 30 pounds or more.
Here I've got my Okuma spinning reel and a Shimano Saragossa.
Barracuda hitting one of the poppers. And here we have Nelson rocking a tsunami rod and a Finor reel. Said both held up well. We were pretty stoked about the Papio and Ulua. Especially the monster Ulua. Back on Oahu, these are few and far between because they're so fished out. So we definitely did catch and release. Not all of the days were sunny, however, and with tropical weather there was often times where we'd be running from a storm, or a storm would be catching up, or just rain for no reason. Still went out anyway though. When it was raining actually pretty hard and it was really hot, it was actually kind of nice. Unfortunately, I don't remember this deckhand's name. We nicknamed him Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia because he was always doing the grunt work. But he put in the time and took care of his work, so at the end of the fishing trip, we all pitched in and gave him a big tip. So here, even though it's raining, you can see that there's a faint outline of a GT. So we're kind of following them around and seeing what they're doing and seeing what it would take for them to take the bait. Also to note, this water was probably about 4 feet deep, because when we finally ended up catching a couple of GT and the guide jumped in, it was maybe a little bit past his waist. We also stocked up on a couple of different kinds of poppers and a bunch of different surface lures to see what the GT favored. So with the lures, it was kind of hit or miss, but our guide Michael was able to help us out and give us some pointers. You want dolphins? Plenty of dolphins. They were quite playful and followed our boat around for quite a bit, popping in and out. It was pretty neat to see them arm's reach away.
So let's talk a little bit about the non-boat day. The non-boat day consisted of us splitting up into 2 different cars and driving around the island looking for fishing spots. Now keep in mind that it was also rainy season, so a lot of the streets were flooded and a lot of spots that the guide had originally planned to take us were flooded and inaccessible. Accidental GoPro selfie.
The beaches that we were taken to were pristine and seemed pretty devoid of humans. We spent hours on the beaches, casting from shore and walking.
I remember catching a couple of small Papio with stick bait.
We didn't get any video of it, but Nelson caught a monster Ulua from the shore. And at the end of the day, Mike caught an amilu with a pencil popper. Let's take a look at what happens under the surface of the water in the Christmas Islands.
The water was always amazingly clear, but on some days it was just mind-boggling how far below you could see from the surface. This Kagami was just cruising around, but the water was so visible that Mike was able to sight fish for it. It was pretty amazing to see these big schools of ava, or milkfish, up close.
at the rock behind you. I mean,
Looks like Kai's on here with a rainbow runner.
runner. Yep.
For the most part, we did catch and release, but sometimes the boat crew wanted to bring fish home to their families, and sometimes the family at the lodge asked us to bring fish home for dinner. Our guide Michael definitely gave us a lot of opportunities to use poppers for catching GT and Papio. The rainbow runner was a good fight. Lots of head shakes. Towards the end of the fishing trip, our fishing guide had asked us if there was anything on our list that we wanted to do that we hadn't done previously. I think it was Kai who asked if they could show us how the locals catch the mantis shrimp. Our captain Ryder actually had some experience with this, so they took us out to the flats and anchored the boat, and we were free to walk around and explore. As you can see, it was mostly sandy and the water was maybe 3 feet deep. While they were looking, a few of us took this opportunity to cast a couple of lures and to relax and explore. Here, our Captain Ryder's checking one of the holes to see if it's inhabited by a mantis shrimp. It looked like a good possibility that Ryder would catch one, but no luck this time. That said, it was still a gorgeous day in Christmas Island and quite a relaxing afternoon in the sand flats. With that, we packed up and headed back to the fishing lodge. The members of the family that ran the fishing lodge were quite hospitable and always smiling and welcoming. The rainbow runner we caught was battered and stir-fried and quite tasty. There was a number of other delicious food that they cooked up and served family style. We were often quite tired after a full day of fishing, so after dinner most of us would call it an evening, knowing that the following morning would be an early start to another fishing adventure. From that one day that we were being driven around the island, we did notice that there wasn't a whole lot of produce grown on the island. As a result, we did notice that a lot of the food was non-perishables or stuff that was probably shipped over. We did see some squash growing in some gardens and some chickens and a couple of pigs milling around. The lodge provided us breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Lunch was normally 2 sandwiches each and placed in a cooler. Lobster was plentiful, although none of us were really big lobster eaters. On some of the evenings, we would sit in the community area and look at maps and talk with some of the other locals. It was interesting to learn where they were from and what areas they had explored. Each unit had 2 twin beds, an AC, and a bathroom. Due to the rainy season, the main street in the town of London was flooded. With that, our week of fishing in the Christmas Islands had come to a close. It was a quick trip, but it's one that I'll fondly remember for the rest of my life.
Could you imagine?